panel has been canceled. You're perfectly welcome to stay and wait for the next one at 10:40.
And up to T2Com, so I reduced the number of 4-stars that I work for, but still have a large number of 3.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the Warriors Corner. We are going to get ready for our next presenter, Brigadier General Patrick Costello, Commanding General of the Fires Center of Excellence, with his partner, Brigadier General John.
Thanks for the sponsors and AUSA for setting us up and giving us an opportunity to talk this morning. I'm Pat Costello. I've been the Commanding General out at the Fire Center of Excellence for the last 9 months. Accompanied today with Brigadier General Glenn Hankey, the Commandant of the Air Defense Artillery School, and Colonel Greg Tomlin, currently serving in our Transformation Integration Directorate, a former Armory Capability Manager, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, and now helping me on the Portfolio Acquisition Executive side. So we're going to talk this morning about streamlining fires, and we're going to talk about it in 2 ways. We're going to talk about it in a Fort Sill perspective to talk to you about the changes that have happened at Fort Sill, but we're also going to talk about it from an operational perspective with both Greg and Glenn kind of picking up that talking point. So behind me is what I took command of last summer on the left-hand side. So we had Army Futures Command, Training and Doctrine Command. We had the 2 cross-functional teams for long-range precision fires and air and missile defense. And around October, as both TRADOC and Army Futures Command cased their colors and T2COM came into existence, we completely reorganized what we were doing at Fort Sill. So the cross-functional teams that worked for FCC before and AFC came together to form the Futures Capability Directorate. They still report to FCC and up to T2COM, so I reduced the number of 4 stars that I work for, but still have a large number of 3 stars to include Lieutenant General Lozano, who's my PAE boss now as well. Within the Center of Excellence, we took the existing Army Capability Managers, which there are 5. We had 3 for field artillery and 2 for air defense artillery, and we turned them into 3 TILMs. So we went to 5 to 3. We have 1 for offensive fires, 1 for defensive fires, and 1 for cross-domain fires now, which is a signal of where we're going as a fires enterprise across the operational force when we start talking about how we're using data to make us more lethal and more efficient as a fires fighting force. Within that transformation integration development, you have the 3 transformation and lesson learned managers, which Greg is going to talk about. We have the force management office, and we have the other folks that are tied into the operational force from a time frame of about 0 to 3 years to take a look at how the operational force is doing and bring those lessons back in to the institution. The analogy that I use is when I was a cross-functional team director about 3 years ago for the AMD CFT, the COE could not keep up with what the CFTs were doing. And now that we're under 1 4-star headquarters, this helps us stay a little bit more streamlined. So the COE is directly tied to the FCC, doing concepts, requirements, experimentation. And then we are tied to the operational force that is really doing all of the transformation and contact and experimentation out at the forward edge instead of bringing things back to the schoolhouse. And so while all that innovation is happening with the operational force, we're able to bring that back to Fort Sill and keep pace with where the operational force is going. So the COE, in my mind right now, is moving at the same speed that the cross-functional teams were moving a few years ago. With that, I want to pause because I want to get to questions and everything, but I want to turn it over to Greg Tomlin first to talk from an EFCO perspective, transformation lessons learned, and how we're integrating that with the portfolio acquisition executive responsibilities that I wear as the Deputy PAE for Fires, and then turn it over to Glenn to give you some concrete examples of transformation within the AMD portfolio and how we're looking at cross-domain fires. So thank you.
Thank you, sir, and good morning to everyone. So on the 2nd of October, I brought the former Army capability managers together with their contractors, their Department of the Army civilians, and in the town hall I said, call all your PMs, call all your industry reps right away, and tell them the one thing that hasn't changed is you're still their conduit into the Fire Center of Excellence. So those 3 branch TILMs, offensive, defensive, cross-domain fires, they still day-to-day work with the program managers as the user representative for all of our fielded systems. And importantly, they work with the FCD that General Costello mentioned because they own the requirements document, and the responsibility of the TILM is to provide the .mil.pf integration requirements into those requirement documents that are being generated by the FCD. And that's very important because in TIC, we're rapidly fielding, we're evaluating, but that's not necessarily what we're going to resource for the entire Army in the future. And to determine whether we can afford to integrate that for the entire Army or specific portions of the Army based on theater requirements, we have to appreciate that .mil.pf integration. So what does that mean? Well, in Hawaii, we experimented in the 25th Division Artillery with rockets, but it's a light division. So it's not just giving them HIMARS launchers, it's also at the division level, resourcing the resupply vehicles to sustain the rate of fire that we believe based on war plans we're going to need. That's .mil.pf integration. Field artillery is a system of systems. Air defense is very much a system of systems. We'd like to move away from a tethered radar, maybe to a common radar. How do we achieve that data sharing if on the field artillery side it's secure information, but on the air defense, it's secret. How do we share that data between two branches without creating latency? And in my fires tell-em role, I've gained a lot more appreciation for air defense, and I understand that 1/10 of a second of latency is the difference between success or failure in air interdiction. Maybe not the same on the field artillery side. So in the middle of tell-em is lessons learned. What does lessons learned mean? Well, we've been discovering that since the 2nd of October, and I'll give you 3 very specific examples. One of them, over the past several weeks, we have an operation going on with Iran. We've shot an incredible amount of THAAD and Patriot in theater. And the defensive fires tell-em, Colonel Craig Totner, has had someone in his office almost 24 hours a day for the past several weeks. They are hearing from the 32nd Air Defense Command. Every time they shoot one of these rockets or one of these missiles, they're taking feedback directly to the PM. Engineers are updating software, updating threat models, and pushing software packages back into theater. That is lessons learned, actively improving our capabilities for Operation Epic Fury. If you were in the keynote, the Under talked about going to Fort Carson for Ivy Sting. Well, Colonel Tyler Donnell is our offensive fires tell-em. He is on the ground or has a representative in every one of these Ivy Stings. And so he's talking to the division artillery commander about what this AX, artillery exchange system, a Fateheads in a cloud, is going to be. And he's talking about the .mil-PF integration piece that you can't simply ignore. For example, you need a specific type of radio. When would those radios actually be fielded to the 4th Infantry Division and across the entire Army? As the fires tell them, I worry a lot about Compo 2 because more than half of the field artillery is in the National Guard. When will we integrate that? So that's something that we inform. And the second thing I'll add about lessons learned is with the reorganization that General Costello described, the Combined Arms Commander, Lieutenant General Eisenhower, now has control of the CTCs. He already had MCTP, he had Kyle, but with the value of having the CTCs is that we can have lessons sent to us from the CTCs to the CAC to the COEs, because when we went from 5 ACMs to 3 TILMs, we lost a lot of people. By this summer, there'll only be 106 across all of the TILMs. And so we don't have as many people to go to every exercise, every experiment. So we will have to leverage CAC to get those lessons back. We will help CAC write the learning objectives when it comes to the fires warfighting function, and then do the post-experiment analysis to inform the .mil-PF integration. Now, as the fires tell them at the level above the 3 branches, where I'm particularly helpful to the CG is he is the Deputy PAE for fires. And so we help him to understand all those intricacies. That Lieutenant General Lozano, who owns the fires portfolio, doesn't own C2. That's a separate PAE. And we need to make sure that C2 is prioritizing radios for our howitzers, software updates for AX, if we're really going to improve the kill chain for field artillery. That's something that's important. And then on the cannon side, the ammunition for cannons is not inside the fires portfolio. It's inside of General Rhimes' agile sustainment and ammunition portfolio. But as we know, precision is important. The Under mentioned that in his keynote, which means we have to ensure that in the agile sustainment and ammunition portfolio, they are still funding R&D for new precision munitions and fuses for the field artillery, both for any of our cannon systems that we have. And the last piece I'll mention is that we help the CG with building the POM prioritization. And that's where we have to balance current and future readiness. As the user representative, the TILMs get an earful every day from commanders at the battalion and brigade level because they would like some widget in their formation because they know that some other division has it. How soon can we get that? You can't replace all of the 777s in the Army this year. It's going to take years. And to synchronize that, you have to understand that maybe we have to take some of our future readiness money and put it in modernizing the legacy systems that we're still going to have in our formations for many more years. We help the CG understand that prioritization to balance current and future readiness. And so I'll turn it back over to General Henke.
Good morning, everybody. Glenn Henke, the Air Defense Commandant. So we're really going to talk just about a couple things at the schoolhouse and what that means for the T2Com transition and transformation across the enterprise and what that means from a practical perspective. So a lot of authorities for developing coursework and training was previously held at a very high level. A lot of that authority has now been pushed down to the commandants to be able to make adjustments because General Hodney has said many times the commandants are the warfighting experts and we have to leave the school and we have to drive it to be relevant. So a couple initiatives that we've done as an example with those new authorities. In October, Brigadier General Jason Williams, the FA Commandant, and I came together and came up with an idea of, as we develop out what we truly mean by cross-domain fires, what does that mean from what do I train a captain, what do I train a lieutenant? So what we decided to do is take our two career courses and integrate them, not combined. That's the important difference. We bring them together for the first part of the course where they are learning some of the common things that we need all our captains to understand. And then we break them back out into their branch-specific training so they can build that expertise to be expert fire supporters, expert air defenders. The next part of that is then we bring them back and we talk about where the warfighting things that we do together and do some exercises and do some training that way. Because these captains are going to graduate and some of them are going to go work on a DVIDS staff as air defenders and as field artillerymen, and we don't want them exchanging business cards on the battlefield, but also they help them understand what they need to learn together. They're going to go work in multi-domain task forces. They're going to go work on division headquarters. So not just focus on their individual weapon system, but how we bring these all together. So we're running that pilot right now. Great feedback from both ends. The air defenders are learning a lot about targeting that we haven't taught previously or haven't taught recently. On the field artillery side, it's kind of bringing home some of what are the things that, understanding the air defense fight that they're now having front row seats to watching in CENTCOM right now. So that's been some greatness on that. So that's one example, and we will just continue to refine that because we didn't need additional resources to do it. We just needed to reorganize the resources, and more importantly, we didn't need anybody's permission to do it. So the second example is a little more dramatic on the air defense side. Back in August, we pitched to the Chief of Staff in the Army that we had three problems we needed to solve with our core MOS 14 Echo. The first problem was that we were taking too long to train them, 19 weeks and 3 days. So they are the 14 Echo is the Patriot Operator Enhanced Maintainer MOS. So in that they operate the weapons system. So that was the second problem. The air battles that our soldiers are fighting, as we saw in the 12-day war, as we've seen in Ukraine, and as we're seeing again right now, are becoming exceptionally more complicated, and we need to invest more time training them to build the expertise they need in order to fight the very complex attacks. Secondly, the sustainment is becoming much more distributed, and we know that while we are built around a battalion design, we operate across multiple countries. You can have a battalion that has units in 4 countries as routinely, not just in the Pacific, but also in CENTCOM right now. So we needed them to be more self-sufficient. So what we did is we took that MOS and we split it in half. And we focused the existing 14 Echo exclusively on tactics. And we created a new MOS called 14 Whiskey that just does the sustainment. Which is, I say just, but that's a pretty tall order. So from the time we got it pitched to the chief to the time it actually got approved by the Army was 5 months, which is kind of a record for being able to do something like that. Additionally, we had to build 2 entire AITs. And so this is where using the .D, Director of Training and Doctrine, underneath the Transformation Integration Division, took Vantage and used that, built a workspace in Vantage to create a lesson plan builder. So we were able to build 2 AITs in about 8 weeks using this tool. Under our normal processes, legacy process, that would have taken about 2.5 years. So, and then we've got some expert NCOs to, QA/QC this, and again, able to go very fast. The first AIT for the new 14 Echo MOS started on 17 February. and the new AIT for 14 Whiskey started yesterday. And so then that is a 16-week AIT, so we'll get them out to the force 24 days faster, much better trained. So that is one example. The last example in terms of where we're going as we look at the cross-domain fires is we're developing the, in air defense, we've had the air defense fire control officers who work with the Air Force to ensure that we don't shoot down, the wrong thing. So it's, it's a friendly protect focus. But what we realize is there's a lot of overlap between some of the things that are happening with airspace that the field artillery needs to be, enabled with. So we are looking at how do we take that course, modify it to be more relevant for the cross-domain fires. Right now, it's just smart warrant officers coming together and trying to figure out what makes sense. And we will iterate on that and then build that in. But again, a process that normally we would talk about for years, we got folks working on that right now. So looking forward to the questions. Obviously, we have a lot of examples that we could talk about, but I'll turn it back over to General Costello here.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. Hey, what I want to do is just take a couple seconds to tie together some of the FCO pieces that both Greg and Glenn have talked about and how that's tied back to the operational force. I'm a recovering air defender. I served proudly for 20 some odd years. I've lost count. That's why I've lost on my hair. And I find myself being the Google translator between field artillery and air defense at the Fire Center of Excellence on a daily basis, right? For two branches that require the same airspace and the same authorities to employ their effects, right? Field artillery, and from my lieutenant days sitting in an infantry battalion TOC, I remember clearance of fire drills, right? The air defense fire control officers, the air defenders call it friendly protect. It's the same thing, right? Field artillery uses target location error. It sounds a lot like covariance data when we start talking about radars. And it's the same thing. 131 Alphas are targeting officers on the field artillery side. 140 Kilos are counter-targeting officers on the air defense side. And so as we talk about this from an educational and institutional perspective at Fort Sill and bringing the two branches closer together, we look at where we're going in the future with acquisition. Common launcher, right? So if comes with MOS reductions. If I can put HIMARS, GIMLRs, PRISM, ATACMs, Patriot, IFPC, THAAD on a common launcher, I can create a whole lot of efficiencies in a much leaner but more lethal force that's applying fires, right? Whether defensive or offensive fires, whatever the commander needs at the time, with speed, right? The work that 4th ID is doing on agentic AI and STAG agentic, working through airspace management. Because right now we go back to the Air Force to ask permission to employ some of our weapon systems. That process has to be much faster. We're seeing that in Iran right now. And then the last thing is really the Common Fires radar. We have two radars right now, one for counterfire, the Q-53, and the Q-64 for short-range air defense, that do the same thing, right? In the future, we should never co-locate sensors and effectors together again. We should be operating a mesh network of sensors. The problem is our data systems that we've had underpinning both of our branches for years have been so stovepiped that we haven't been able to explore the multi-mission capabilities that those radars have. And so in 26, that's something that we're taking a hard look at, is how do we take advantage of the multi-mission capabilities of all the sensors on the battlefield, not only to include the Army sensors, but the joint sensors, Aegis, F-35, you name it, space-based sensors, to our advantage, and then looking at a multi-mission sensor to once again cut down on our personnel needs, right? It takes 13 Romeos right now to man a Q-53 counterfire radar on the FA side, where we're at 2 for a Q-64, right? That's way too many soldiers, right? We have way too many sensors on the battlefield right now. They're all targets, right? Greg talked about the high payoff target list. The Undersecretary talked about the HPITL this morning with 4th ID, IV Sting exercises, right? The enemy's HPTL looks just like ours does, right? And so we have to reduce the number of sensor targets that we have on the battlefield to increase the survivability of our forces. And that's kind of where we're focused. My first week in the job, I got tasked with developing for the first time a combined fires strategy, right? So no more separate air defense strategy, no more separate field artillery strategy, but a combined strategy. And how that's translating right now is our division air defense battalions that after 20 years of COIN, we're finally getting back into tactical formations, are assigned to the DVIDS so that we can start innovating in the field with the folks that have to live this. I'm out of the good idea business at this time of my career, right? And those good ideas from the field need to be integrated. We're looking really hard at how we integrate the indirect fire protection capability, so cruise missile defense, within the core field artillery brigades, and what that means for sensor management and how we employ fires. And then Greg talked a little bit about what we're doing with HIMARS and rocket battalions. We're doing the same thing on the air defense side in Korea, while we're integrating THAAD, Patriot, and indirect fire protection capability as part of the transformation and contact effort. And then obviously what we're doing in Guam, right, with bringing together all of those capabilities under a single formation, and how we can do that and leverage all of that data that's coming in now that's available to everybody, right? AFATIDS can, replacement AXS can take data from anywhere now. Air defense can take data from anywhere right now, and so we do not have to be solely dependent on just ourselves, and that's really changing how the way we're organized and employed out in the field. With that, I'd like to sit down and take your questions wherever you want to go. Thank you. All right, I know somebody's got questions somewhere. I was threatened with a few earlier, so go ahead, sir.
Hi, Dave Lockhart. So the question I have relates to a couple of things. One of them is a demand signal that the under has been talking about recently, and that the department's going to do a more deliberate job of communicating that. And then I'd like to know how that potentially ties to and is leveraged by this ASAult Live system that the under talked about this morning, that the AAE talked about at the beginning of March, and if that's benefiting you and how that might benefit industry as well.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Lockhart, for your question. Can we get the volume up a little bit? Or I'll switch mics. All right, better. So let me answer the second question first. So ASAult Live is providing a near real-time status of any program across the Army. In the Fires PAE perspective, we have 62 programs of record, not to mention all the other things that we're kind of pursuing. And so whether you need a production status, a contract status, a look at how a certain sub is doing, ASAult Live presents the Undersecretary of the Army, the AAE, and more importantly, all the PAE leadership with a real-time assessment of how all of our programs are performing, underperforming, or overperforming. And so when we tie that back to consolidated budget lines and decisions have to be made about funding priorities and where funding is going, we can see where resources need to be applied and where they may not. So getting off of PowerPoint has been very helpful from my perspective. I represent more of the operational side of that, so I like to stay away from some of the contracting work and things like that, and work the requirements and tied back into the institutional base. But there's a lot of value to that. Where the under has gone from an OIB perspective, I think was your other question. Look, I'm a fires professional. I can never get enough. Colonel Tomlin talked about just the consumption rate of all of our munitions, and this is just our long-range precision munitions, right? If we got into a close fight with an adversary around the world, we'd be talking about those munitions as well. I think where we are going, and I use PRISM Increment 4 as an example of opening up the competition to bring in other competitors into this space to look at low-cost interceptors, because both field artillery precision munitions and air defense terminal defense munitions are cost prohibitive, right? It's really, really expensive to do what we're doing. And we're looking at creative ways with our industry partners on how we can achieve the same effect at a lower cost, maybe by applying more mass, maybe by applying more precision. So I hope that helps. Thank you.
Hey gents, Drew Street here with Havoc. My question pertains to training and simulation in particular. So we're a joint fire simulation company. What is your relationship with CPE ST3 down in Orlando, and is PAE Fires or FCO leading kind of the next generation of joint fire simulation?
So right now our main effort in that space has been supporting all the Army's work going on with Next Gen Constructive, because being able to accurately depict our weapon systems in core warfighters, division warfighters, and some of the joint exercises that support gives us the opportunity to not only have a great training environment for in ways we cannot simulate on the ground, but it also gives us T2COM the opportunity to do some experimentation inside of that same spaces. You know, we moved out on with Third Corps on the concept of the multifunctional brigade strike, which is General Costello mentioned about putting air defense IFPIC formations as part of the Corps artillery, and really in order to protect those, defeat the air threats that will disrupt our long range fires. But we did that based on what we saw in a warfighter. A lot of it was done on white cards. So this will allow us to give us a lot better performance. In terms of the simulation in the schoolhouse, tied very closely into all the different simulations that come from the different programs. We are looking to always look to get more where it makes sense, and then also looking at some virtual training opportunities as well. If I don't have to keep swapping out switches, but I can do that virtually, saves us a lot of money and also reduces costs. And so if we need to accelerate growth in the training base, that's one option, short of a multi-million, $100 some odd million radar.
Let me add one piece to that, if I can. When I was the commander of the 94th AAMDC in Hawaii, we stopped doing paper rehearsal of concept drills and started doing low fidelity sim to introduce new concepts and be able to make units do things much more fast to respond. And some of the shortcomings that we have in our current sim right now can't keep up with the speed with which we're changing, right? And so that's a challenge. At the low fidelity level for modeling and sim, having something that can keep up with where we're going. I'll give you an example. If in the old sim, if you destroyed a radar, the entire unit was NMC. That's not the way we're going to fight in the future. But I can't model that yet, right? And so the sim has to be able to keep up with kind of where we're going as the future force to make it valuable. Absolutely a need to get that into the operational force at the low fidelity level, right? So that we can experiment without being out in the field and spending millions of dollars in the training that's there. That's where the STE comes in. And then be able to take that back for some higher fidelity analysis to inform either a .mil PFP change, a software change in the system, or a TTP that we need to change. So thank you. All right, we got a couple more minutes. I'm going to start calling on folks that I see in the audience. If I don't need to, that'd be great. One more question. All right, we got one over here.
Hello. Sorry, I put this down. I am Lindsay Linsky with the University of North Georgia. You mentioned concern over the amount of time it takes to train. And so I'm curious, I'm here with some of our cadets, if you, in a perfect world, if soldiers could show up, officers could show up after commissioning ready to, like what would, if you could wave a magic wand, what would you want them to be able to show up being able to do, especially in light of how fast things are changing?
Well, the biggest thing we need them to understand is just being able to learn quickly. I think that is probably the critical task, because when I was in the officer basic course one behind General Costello, we spent a lot of time learning a very, what was the program of instruction, and then we get out to the force and you start learning additional things. But there was a progression that was sort of natural. We're in a space now where I need the people to be able to shift very, very quickly. What we are finding is those officers and NCOs who are able to pick up new skills rapidly are by far that's the most beneficial thing skill they can have. It's not necessarily a proficiency in engineering. I mean, the degree is just giving you the baseline of how to learn. But being able to learn quickly and learn something, not necessarily being taught, that's probably, I'd say, the most critical skill that we need them to have.
Randy McIntyre. A quick question. Could you tell us what we can expect next month at the Fire Symposium?
A great time, Lawton, Oklahoma, the center of the universe, right? There are no TSA lines in Lawton, so come and enjoy yourself. Listen, we're really excited to have General Hodney, the T2 Comm Commander, be one of the keynote speakers at the Fire Symposium this year to really lay out what he sees as the future of fires alongside the Army warfighting concept that he's been working very closely with the Chief of Staff of the Army on. How that translates to the Fire Center of Excellence and out to the operational force. Just as important, we're going to get a chance to honor some of our soldiers, warfighters, that are long overdue. I think this is the 20th anniversary of Patriot returning to the Middle East. Right? Doha Asian Games 2006 was when the Patriot rotation started in the Middle East. And so for the last 19 years, those soldiers have been rotating in there heel to toe without end, right? Causing some health of the force issues and others. But they're finally doing what the Army needed them to do now. We're going to honor some of the field artillery soldiers, right? Celebrate the first prism shot in combat and the success there, the great things that are happening in the Pacific with our field artillery force. More importantly, beyond the networking that you always get with an event like the Fire Symposium or AUSA, is the candid discussion about where we're going as a force and the healthy dialogue that comes along with that. So I know you're tied in, sir. Thanks for your question. It's a loaded one. So, all right. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again. I'll be around for the next 2 days. General Hankey will be around to take whatever I'm not around for, and Colonel Tomlin the same. So thank you again for coming, and thanks again for AUSA putting this on.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The next panel will begin at 11:20. So start making your way to your seats and stand by, please. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. In 2 minutes, we will begin the next panel presentation. If you will, please make your way to a seat. Welcome to the Warriors Corner. Our next panel will be Power at the Tactical Edge, Lessons from the Transformation in Contact, presented by Mr. Nathan Cornell, Program Manager for Operational Energy, and his team of colonels.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Nathan Cornell. Time to get started here. So, we're here today to talk about energy, operational energy. And I will tell you, everything we do is enabled with energy. On and off the battlefield, you don't accomplish anything without it. But when I talk about energy, everybody has a different idea on what that means because it's everywhere and it enables everything. So, whether we're talking about energy at the strategic level of war, where we talk in terms of access to location, access to resources, access to capabilities, or the operational level of war, where we start talking in terms of gallons and time and distance. Everybody thinks of energy differently. Today, though, at the tactical level of war, we find ourselves talking about watt hours and pounds and days. And to tell us a little bit about that today, What are some of the issues associated with energy at that tactical edge? I've got two distinguished leaders here today, Colonel Mike Woodard and Colonel Ryan Bell, and I'm going to let them tell you all about energy at the tactical edge. Let's start with Colonel Woodard. Your division has been working on these energy issues for quite some time. Tell us the challenges, tell us what y'all have done to overcome that, and tell us what the lessons you've learned. Over.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Nathan. Appreciate it. You know, as the 25th continues to transform in contact, we're presented with a bunch of number of challenges, none of which are insurmountable, but they all are nuanced. Looking at where we operate, where we've been tasked to perform our mission, and really the archipelago in the islands west of the IDL, we remain challenged with lines of communication, and where we have to disperse our formations becomes increasingly more challenging when you talk about energy. All of the stuff around here today, as you can see, there's a bunch of widgets, cool new toys coming out that creates a more lethal formation. But that guy right there, that light jungle fighter, is what I'm charged with by my division commander, General Evans, to increase their operational reach. So as we become loaded down with more toys, kit, that comes with more batteries, more power generation, and that is quite frankly cumbersome. So what we've been trying to articulate is how do we get after creating some commonalities, whether that's a common battery, whether that's power generation at the far forward edge. And how do I enable that soldier to dismount from an ISV and then truck through the jungle, right, where the canopy is so thick that some of the power generation toys that are out there don't necessarily apply. So what we've been doing, like probably most, is working through what are those power demands, right, so that we can give them the right batteries, give them the right power generation. What we found, though, is what's lacking. This is where I need the kind of industry help. Is we don't think of power and new toys and new kit, right, as a sustainment function, like a class of supply. So there's several tools out there, and I equate it to like class 1 bulk, like water. That I know how much water it takes for that light fighter per day marching in, horrendous terrain, either mounted, dismounted, how much water I need to give to that individual, and where they will culminate if I don't have more for them. I don't have that for power, and that's really where I'm trying to get the industry to help out. Is where's that sustainment or mission planning tool that can enable these guys to be able to mission select what stuff they're taking, given the mission that they've got, and then where will they culminate, and where do I need to put in, whether that's a cache, do we need to identify critical terrain to be able to dump power generation, all of those factors. That's really where I see a LIMFAC. Everybody out here is developing some pretty cool kit. There's some pretty cool options that are available. But for that light fighter and that 18-year-old that's humping through the jungle, right? How much of that stuff should they take with them, and where do they hit point of diminishing returns because it's too much? So, with that, I'll hand it over.
Thank you, Colonel Bell. Let's go to you, and I'm going to ask you the same questions. What are the challenges? What have you guys tried to do to overcome that? What are the lessons learned? What do you recommend us to do? Over.
No, thank you, sir. Hi, everyone. My name is Colonel Ryan Bell. I'm the commander for the 3rd Mobile Brigade in the 101st Airborne Division, known as the Rakasans. Been fortunate to command over the past year as one of the Army's TIC brigades. We are actually going to go into the box at JRTC in 2 weeks. We start on Monday with RSOI there in Fort Polk, Louisiana, to test everything we're talking about. I'll start off kind of define the operating environment that we've been preparing for. I'll outline some of the things we have tried once we looked at those the problems, some things we're trying, and then a few areas where I think we could use some help when we're talking in a brigade, specifically a company and below in a mobile brigade. For the operating environment, we are on the crisis response force, which means we're on a short-term PTDO, and I could deploy to the Pacific, I could deploy to Europe, and go anywhere globally where we're needed. What that means is we have planned and trained and prepared to fight dispersed, whether that's in Europe spread out or it's on different islands in the Pacific. We have to be prepared to fight dispersed under constant observation, whether it's satellites, whether it's drones, we're going to be seen. We have to deal with contested communications across the entire electromagnetic spectrum. Where just talking creates a signature and you can be seen and targeted, but you have to be able to talk to fight. And then our logistics are going to be challenged from the port in the United States all the way to the foxhole with a rifleman in a defensive position. And that creates a ton of issues. When we talk about power, that's complicated by all the additional technology and capabilities we're adding. And so if I look at a rifle company, in the last couple of years, we've given them ENVGs, the Enhanced Night Vision Goggles, which are an amazing piece of capability. But I have to change 4 lithium-ion AA batteries every day, which means my brigade goes through 40,000 AA batteries a day. In a company or in a platoon, I have 16 radios, 163s, 158s, 160s. Every leader has an end-user device, a Samsung Galaxy smartphone, that connects to a mesh network over the integrated tactical network to send data, or it connects over a MiFi puck to connect over LTE. So I am able to see and give each of them a common operating picture, and they're able to share intelligence all the way back to the brigade and division from the FLOT. We have the new M7 rifle with the M157 optic, which takes batteries. Every rifleman has a laser, which take batteries. We've added the soldier-borne sensor, the Black Hornet, which needs to be recharged. We've added the Skydio, the short-range reconnaissance drone, which needs to be recharged. In our brigade, we've added a new device, a PBAS, precision or a purpose-built attritable system, essentially an FPV that's been augmented with the ability to do its own target acquisition and terminal guidance to take the cognitive load off the soldier, but that takes batteries. It takes a charge. And we're trying to do this in an environment where I cannot run a log pack out to the FLOT. I can't bring the squad back to a FOB because every time you move, you're going to be seen. And so the challenge we've had is how do I generate power forward? How do I simplify my logistical chain so I can charge all those devices and those capabilities because we absolutely need them for the next fight. What we do have in a mobile brigade is infantry squad vehicles. And so I've got a generator, functionally, an engine with every one of those squads, or at least nearby, the last covered and concealed position to train feature back from where they are set up in their fighting positions. And so we've added inverters to every ISV. That allows us to charge our ITN equipment. We're able to charge conformable batteries roughly 4 every 2 hours to keep those team leaders and squad leaders, platoon leader, the FSO, the RTO, able to talk on the net. What we found when we added our drones is those inverters and the alternator in the ISV do not allow us to get the watt hours and the voltage to charge the drones. And so I've had to add storage capability. We had bought EcoFlow power packs that now allow me to charge a Skydio. But the EcoFlows, for example, will recharge a Skydio's battery 6 times. That gives me 3 hours of flight time with those drones, which is not enough. That's how we've been approaching it. We are running, when we do our log packs, we are running EcoFlows back and forth to platoons. We are running gas out to recharge off the ISVs. But where I think we need help is how do we get high density storage up at the FLOT in a small form factor so I can put it in a squad fighting position or a squad or a hide site. And how do I recharge and get the power generation forward in those ISVs or some platform that I have that's constant to be able to take care of all that tech. We also know that going forward, what we have right now is not where we're going to end. We're going to continue to add capabilities, and the power generation is only going to grow. So the ability to scale the generation of the FLOT is going to be key. Sir.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate that. Before we go to the audience, I got a question, for you guys. with all the things that we've been reporting and learning over the last several years about tactical power, what do you want the Army to do with that? How do you want us to teach and train soldiers and leaders? How do you want us to look at how we fight differently? What is your recommendation so that we don't just have lessons observed on power, but we actually have a lesson learned that we act on?
Yeah, I think from my perspective as a sustainer, I need the sustainment community, right, and the CASCOM and some of the others that power is a class of supply. We have to treat it as such. It is a critical supply, demand versus supply that keeps these guys in the fight. It keeps them talking, shooting, right? It helps them target acquisition. It is an enabler, and right now there is no doctrinal way to talk about this and teach it and then plan against it. So from a sustainment community, that's my ask.
I would agree with them. If we treat this as a class of supply where it goes into our planning, we train it in all the PME from ALC with our NCOs, BOLIC, career course, ILE. How do you see power? How do you understand where you're at? You maintain a common operating picture of your power generation capability. And then how do you plan for it based off predicting and understanding what your requirements are going to be given your mission set?
Thanks, that's great. We got some time for some questions from the audience. Find a microphone, state your name, state your organization, and let's go.
Hey, good morning, and thanks for being here. Robert Douthit, Man About Town. Hey, in terms of the requirement that you see today, and in what's getting fielded through the FUSE program and everything else, the process they're going through, what's been most successful, right? In terms, where do you see your needs being answered for the soldiers that need the power, right? What's been fielded to you with the transition and contact units? Have you fielded anything yet, or are you still working your way through the system? Thanks, and thanks for what you're doing, by the way.
Thanks, sir. Up front, like as we fielded ITN, for example, a great example is the conformable battery. It gives us a universal battery that works for a number of systems that I can easily recharge forward without having to run them back and forth. So that's an example that I think shows the requirement and a good solution the Army's pushed out.
Yeah, and to that point, right? So we're playing with the conformable batteries as well, but the 2590s we've actually done side by side comparison. They actually charge longer, right, and are a little more serviceable. But having those options, right, so that leaders can make those judgment calls based on what they're using and what the actual mission that they're conducting. That options, I think, is a critical piece. He talked about power gen using the ISVs, the SMETs. That's another one. Being able to charge on the move. Those type of solutions off of the power that you're already using have been game changer.
And I'll add one thing to you, sir. I know in the Army's energy strategy, one thing that would be very helpful is essentially a common standard, right? If we're able to get a common standard across the system, so all the drones use a similar battery, that would at least still allow us to charge the batteries on the same charger. That'd be hugely helpful.
Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Patrick Sweeney with Rialto Ventures. I'm curious if you've seen any capacitor-based technologies that's non-flammable and a different capability than lithium-ion, and if so, what have you thought of those?
Have you messed around with any of that stuff?
It's been talked about for a long time. I know that much, and I know that people have been looking at me and saying, hey, can we get some money to go out there and combine capacitors with batteries so you get the best of both worlds, the high power density of a capacitor with the high energy density of a battery, and now how can we package that and what can we do with it? And I will tell you, there's always more ideas than there is money. That's the truism, so we're going to have to see how how it works out, what's the use case going to be, who's going to tackle that problem to see where it is that we can find utility. Every technology has a niche somewhere, and you just got to find the right use case for that technology, and when we see it and believe that that's what's going to be the solution set, then that's when we're going to go start chasing that hard.
John Jekyll with the Future Capability Development for Sustainment. We're working on power beaming, and I was just wondering if I could extract from you guys some thoughts on how you would see power beaming employed in a realistic environment. We're looking at a range of use cases, but I just wanted to hear from you guys what you thought would be useful over.
Yeah, no, I haven't messed with it at the tactical edge, but when I was in futures, I know power beaming was something that they were looking at closely, and I think there's, you know, whether that's on the communication side, whether that's on the power, I think there's some goodness there. I'd have to dig out some old ConOps to see, you know, and really kind of nerd out for a little bit to see where that use case would be, but definitely it gives us an alternative way to generate power that wouldn't necessarily have to put, you know, a big station on ground, and I think there is some validity in the concepts that are behind that. I don't know if you messed around with it.
Oh, I would just add that when we talk about the power beaming piece on a battlefield, I don't believe that we're going to see laser power beaming going to be the way, because it's all visible. Maybe millimeter wave is going to be something that we move toward. We've got folks working on it with up at Armament Center, have been working on it with OSW and the guys at DARPA and the Navy, and they've been working through it. You know, when we now can like beam a kilowatt over a kilometer, something like that. You know, but it's going to be a while before we actually get it to a form factor that is going to move forward to the tactical space for sure. Does it have some use cases farther back where, say, I want to power persistent ISR, do it from the ground, drone never has to land? I think there's probably going to be the first use case right there where I get long-range persistent ISR from power beaming.
I would second his with the long-range persistent ISR from a stationary platform that's well rear of the flat. Forward, given the fact that you can see and sense the delivery, it's not something we've exercised, and I don't see it happening in the near future until it becomes much more robust and reliable.
All right, thank you. My name is Randy Nolden from Galnetics Technologies. Just curious, in your experience, how beneficial has onboard vehicle power or vehicle power been beneficial to the actual soldier?
Thanks, Randy. It's right now that's our general solution forward for a platoon. I can't carry a generator out as they go on patrol. The ISVs are staying at terrain feature back, and they're able to use them to move forward and then operate off. And they use it as a sustainment platform in some cases. So having that vehicle-borne power, to use that as a generator to reduce the soldier load and allow us to simplify our supply chain has been very helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I really can't add much to that. I mean, that's exactly it's exactly it, right? So you reduce that supply chain, the reliance, and you're not going to get all of it, right? But what you can do is extend that time with which I can delay then sending support back out there, right? Because now either they're coming back to their ISVs and we're setting up a supply point distribution where we're exchanging, or you're going to a terrain feature in which I can have power generation, right? And then they can charge off of a more traditional generator or something else. It is extending the life of which they can be untethered from those larger sustainment tails.
And I'll add one thing to you, Randy. One of the things we learned watching Europe was the challenge of operating using tents. And so in our brigade, all the tents are gone. Every one of our command posts, company, battalion, brigade, is operated out of Humvees, LMTVs. And so we have to be able to move quickly. We have to be able to in place, get up on comms so we can execute mission command. And then if we're seen, which may just be a Skydio flying over a height site, rapidly move. And so that generation to be able to get mobile so we're able to stay survivable is hugely important.
No, I would just add one more thing to that point as well. With the ISVs and some of this other, the more traditional generation, we've decreased significantly the reliance on Class 3 bulk, so diesel, JP8, that kind of stuff, which again has second, third order effects on the amount of stuff that now we're asking his guys to carry in with them, and that then we have to follow up with. So, yeah, that power through electrification at the local vehicle level, it's significant.
Hey, gentlemen. Ben Kessling with Chariot Defense. Got two questions for you real quick. One is, can you talk about the difference that you've seen on the battlefield between power and energy, and the importance of understanding, like, having storage in an energy form, but also being able to punch out with that hard with power when you need it at the edge, and also some concerns that you might have with having things from Chinese supply chain in that power and electricity realm. Thank you.
Yeah, I think from a power energy perspective, I think the energized, right, the tech informed or the tech enabled tactical elements that are out. I think that is a I look at that from a sustainment perspective as how do I maintain that level of capacity in which they can continue to operate, right? From a power perspective, and I think hopefully I'm characterizing this correctly. From a power, there's a lot of generation that can happen in the rear area, in which then I can, at the point of need, then I can ramp up my delivery of those assets, whether that's with HIMARS, whether that's with mobile other mobile watercraft or something like that, right? To be able to get to the point of need. I think that's how I see the two differently, right? And I think there's some form factor that we can play around with operationally versus power generation. That there's some stuff that's developing, whether that's hydrogen based, whether that's solar based or renewable based, or whether that's homegrown stuff. I think a lot about living off the local economy, right? How can I do that and use things that are already in the environment to be able to generate that power? So.
And then, sir, moving to your second question, the supply chain challenges are significant. We alluded a second ago, talked about the batteries for our ENVGs. Trying to source a domestically produced lithium-ion battery we haven't been able to do it yet, at least not in the brigade or division level. So it's a concern. It translates across everything we're doing as we add this technology, as we try to source engines for our drones, as we look for the PCB boards for the new technology. Reinvigorating the domestic supply base and helping to build the capacity to scale all of this technology to the level we're going to need for the next fight is pretty significant.
And I would just add that dismounted soldier, he is an energy problem. Right? We want his equipment to draw the least amount of energy possible, means low power is absolutely critical for his endurance. But when we look at other capabilities on the battlefield, that drone is a power problem. And we have got to be able to have the power to carry the payload at the range we want it, but the range itself is where the energy fits in there. It all depends upon the use case. More electronic warfare, you need more power. Active protection systems, you need more power. You want 72 hours without resupply on the ground, you need more energy and less power. Okay, That's good. Well, appreciate you guys coming out. Let me leave you with a few things today. We had a lot of discussion here, and it seems that 50 years ago we would have said everything on the battlefield runs on fuel, except the soldier runs on water. I'd submit that's probably still true today, except we need to amend it, that the soldier runs on water and electrons, so that your energy center of gravity at the tactical battlefield is shifting to that point where we convert fuel into electricity. And that's what we got to fix, that forward distribution of electricity to support that dismounted soldier. Right. So to that end, having heard some of these things, what I want to announce for you is that the Army and the Marine Corps has partnered with the Defense Innovation Unit. And on the 2nd of March, we opened a commercial solutions opening for what we call the PRISM. And I don't remember what it stands for, but it's on the screen. And that was 1 kilowatt to 1 kilowatt hour. No, correction, 1 kilowatt to 15 kilowatts. 1 kilowatt hour to 30 kilowatt hours. Bring us your good ideas, industry, and see how it is that we can find solutions for our tactical edge problems. So right now that it closed on the 16th of March. Right now we had 130 different companies that said, hey, we're interested in participating in this. We're going to be either doing that with down select. Our goal is to test and characterize solutions that industry brings us to make sure they're safe and that they'll actually do what's printed on the label, right? And then we want to see if we can get hardware into soldiers' hands this fall so that we can actually learn what's good, what works, what doesn't work, what needs to be improved, right? So that we can give soldiers an NSN for a selection of equipment they can mix and match to solve their power problem. One of these, two of those, three of that, and that meets this mission need because there's no one solution the Army's going to give them that will solve everybody's power issues. Which goes to my first line of effort on our operational energy strategic framework. So what do we do to solve the energy challenges that our current force is facing as rapidly as we can, while we then integrate energy considerations into the formal acquisitions that we're doing that have much longer term development. How do we secure in the supply chains for the materials and the components that we're going to need for that future force, whether it's batteries, whether it's motors and microcontrollers for your drone? How do we standardize those components so that we don't, if everybody gets a drone, we're buying 340,000 of them this year, we don't need 340,000 different battery solutions. How do we standardize that so we have something that is logistically sustainable and that we can have a demand signal that'll let in American industry, or at least our friendly partner industries, think it's worthwhile to sell us something? If 0.02% of the domestic lithium-ion battery market comes from the Department of War, nobody wants to make things for us. So we've got to get something where it's like, hey, there's a win for industry here, there's a win for the Department of War, there's a win for the Army. That's what we're working on. And the last thing is what we touched on today. How do we train and teach soldiers and leaders how to source, store, distribute, convert, manage energy for the greatest operational good? So there's a great Center for Army Lessons Learned bulletin published back in August of last year that was written by a young major in the 25th Infantry Division from some of their work. It is a must-read. There's a QR code up here on the screen. If you use that QR code, it'll take you right to it. If you still ask for a paper menu, like me, then you just got to Google Center for Army Lessons Learned 25-1085, and it'll pop right up. Or you can come by and see us. We have a booth on East Hall 2122. I've got a couple of genius scientists over there that will show you the battery that we built that'll work at minus 100 degrees. So if it gets colder than 100 degrees on this planet, I don't know where it is, but I doubt we're going to fight there, but this battery will work there if you can find it. So thank you all for coming out. Come by, stop by and see us. Really appreciate you guys being here this morning. And I really want you to give us a hand for Colonel Woodard and Colonel Bell. I really appreciate your gentlemen's support. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. I love the fact that everything you said is all the things that I've been telling people.
Good chat for a minute. I'm with Liquid Piston. Yes, sir. We're a Connecticut-based designer and developer of small, heavy fuel rotary engines.
Test, test. Test, test, test.
They know what needs to be done, and what we need to do is get out of their way.
Calls in the Army, we don't go to participate, we don't go to try hard, we go to win. There is no second place or honorable mention in combat.
The way that we're going to do that is not through the old model of parts and procurement. It is by innovating using things like 3D printers. We're no longer going to accept that we can't repair our own stuff. We must change or become obsolete. For our Army to meet this moment, and what we need to do is get out of their way.
Calls in the Army, we don't go to participate, we don't go to try hard, we go to win. There is no second place or honorable mention in combat.
The way that we're going to do that is not through the old model of parts and procurement. It is by innovating using things like 3D printers. We're no longer going to accept that we can't repair our own stuff.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. What a great lead-in for the next topic, advanced manufacturing, transforming the future force, one layer at a time. Mrs. Carolyn Vo-Farmer, Headquarters Army Materiel Command G3 Supply Chain Management Data, will present with her team. Okay, we're ready, ma'am.
Great. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Huntsville, Alabama. Thank you so much for being with us here today. I'd like to introduce my battle buddies here to my left, Mr. Jason Duncan from TACOM, as well as Colonel Robin Montgomery from T2Com. We are on comms literally on a daily basis, if not more, as we tackle this incredible, exciting opportunity called advanced manufacturing for our Army. So with that, we'll just, as far as a quick agenda for this, let's just go through really quick, and then we'd like to kind of introduce ourselves to you and let you know kind of our background and where we're coming from. And then we'll highlight some initiatives from Army Materiel Command Headquarters from a strategic, an operational, as well as a tactical level. And then Mr. Jason Duncan will highlight some initiatives at TACOM and some of the things that they are doing to really push the boundaries of parts qualification and advanced manufacturing. And Colonel Robin Montgomery will highlight the initiatives for T2Com and how we're actually training our soldiers and how we get after advanced manufacturing at the layers of echelon, which is no easy task whatsoever. So with that, again, good afternoon. Carolyn Farmer here, born and raised in Huntsville, Alabama. You could probably kind of tell from my southern accent, if you will. But I've been in the Army for 25 years as an Army civilian, and it's been an honor to serve the Army in this regard. My background is actually in munitions and aviation sustainment, and I've also worked in several different PM offices from the air as well as the fires perspective. But most recently, I think one of the most enlightening assignments that I had was to be on the ground floor to stand up the Rapid Capabilities and Critical Technologies Office, the RCTO, right here in Redstone Arsenal, Alabama. And my very first program to work in that regard was the long-range hypersonic weapon and fielding that initial capability to our U.S. Army soldiers. Again, what an opportunity to do that and hand over an incredible platform and weapon system and capability to our soldiers. Learned a lot in that regard, and now in this assignment at AMC headquarters, leading our advanced manufacturing initiatives has been incredibly eye-opening and an absolute honor. So with that, I'll pass it over to Mr. Jason Duncan from TACOM.
Good afternoon, everyone. Really happy to be here, especially as we were leaving Detroit, de-icing and fighting through snow. So really happy to be here. We should really move the venue outside, but we'll go ahead and execute in here. So as stated, I'm part of the Detroit Arsenal team. I've also been working for the government for 25 years, coming up in my 25th year. Majority of my assignments pretty much all in the logistics realm. I've done some other initiatives really with a lot of visibility across the Army. CBM, CBM Plus, prognostic predictive maintenance, goes by a lot of names, predictive logistics now, working the assured mobility systems, all moving at warp speed. This program's moving faster. Really excited to be a part of it, really excited to see where we're going to go and where we're going to build out to deliver the capability that's needed. So again, Jason Duncan here from TACOM. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Colonel Rob Montgomery. I'm the 45th Chief of Ordnance, Commandant of the U.S. Army Ordnance School. The largest corps in the Army. Go Ordnance. Yeah, I don't hear the transporter or quartermaster, but my battle buddy, Quartermaster Comment's over there. He thinks he's the largest, but nevertheless. So the Ordnance School is responsible for the portfolio of everything that shoots, that goes boom and boom. Every wheel vehicle we maintain, every radar, weapon system, electronics maintenance, EOD, explosive safety. So it's a pretty big portfolio. So I have nearly 30 years of service in. My background is really tanks, Bradleys, and Strykers. Grew up in Fort Hood and quite frankly in Iraq and Afghanistan, I feel. So I know these systems and I know how they work. I know how they move. I know how they break. And one of the biggest things in combat is when the system breaks, how quickly can we get a part into that country to fix that part. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and I'll talk about what we're doing in the schoolhouse for advanced manufacturing and trying to enable the force and modernize the force. Thank you.
Thank you both. So it's an incredibly exciting time to be a part of Army transformation and sitting at the headquarters for Army Materiel Command, watching it in motion and being a part of that transformation is as exciting as it gets. In 3 different areas for advanced manufacturing, Army Materiel Command continues to focus on, number 1, delivering combat-ready formations. It's imperative, right? One way we're doing it is through our small UAS initiatives to build the manufacturing capacity within the organic industrial base. And that's huge as we start talking about leveraging the Army's industrial might, right? The theme of this entire AUSA forum, that is in action immediately as we speak. Number 2, enhancing the soldier experience. When we talk about advanced manufacturing, it's not always about parts and pieces and metals and alloys, right? We're 3D printing barracks at Fort Bliss, and that ribbon cutting was held months ago, and we're going after more as we speak. So again, it's not always about metals and alloys and parts and pieces. 3D printing barracks for our soldiers to enhance their quality of life has been very important. And then thirdly, reimagining, or even better yet, supercharging the organic industrial base. As we onshore a lot of manufacturing capacity and capability, advanced manufacturing is at the heart of that. And what we see in excelling that and accelerating that for our nation is the partnerships. The partnerships are what's key. As we lean forward to develop those PPP, public-private partnerships, number 1, our partnerships with industry, with academia, our strategic partners, and even nonprofit organizations. Helping us accelerate to go faster in that domain is absolutely imperative. So we need your help in that area. So Army Materiel Command, General Mohan has spoken several different times to identify the supply chain challenges and the vastness of that nature, if you will. Currently today, we have 34,000 delinquent back-ordered parts, right? Upwards of $500 million. That's hard-earned taxpayer dollars that we have put in orders for, and we cannot get those parts no matter how bad we want them. That is an absolute hit on readiness and an impact to our soldiers and our absolute nation. We've got to fix that. That's an absolute direct threat to our readiness. So we see advanced manufacturing at the headquarters at Army Materiel Command, honing in on 5 very specific lines of effort. We held, I'll say, an advanced manufacturing summit back in December, where we synchronized the enterprise. We brought leaders in from all across the Army, nonprofit organizations, as well as academic partners. And out of that particular summit, we identified 5 lines of effort that we spun off IPTs on to go off and tackle and deliver results. Those topics are updating our advanced manufacturing strategy to align with our OSD partners, our enhancement of the data repository as we align with our DLA as well as our OSW partners for defense manufacturing exchange, advanced manufacturing and echelon, and I'm not going to steal Rob's thunder because he's going to highlight that in great detail for you. But again, layered approach to how we provide advanced manufacturing capability to our soldiers at divisions, at TSCs, at the forward levels, at the tactical edge is imperative. Expanding partnerships, which I just kind of honed in on, and how our partners across the enterprise, across the DIB, our academic partners, how they can all help us go faster in that domain. And then lastly, accelerating advanced manufacturing parts qualification. This is a hot topic. General Hodney, General Mohan, as well as Honorable Ingraham from all our Army kind of highest senior leaders have been discussing this particular topic. And I think in that domain of accelerating the parts qualification, we're leaning again on many of our partners across our LCMCs and industry to help us go faster in that domain, but very strategic partners across academia, which we'll hit on, that are highlighting their support and their incredible capability across our academic domain. So very exciting to watch that. But from an advanced manufacturing perspective, what we also see across Army Materiel Command is, and really the enterprise, is a risk-adverse culture, right? It's something new, it's something shiny, it's something just a little bit different. It's not the same, and that's why we're calling it Army transformation. It's not made to be comfortable, right? But from an engineering perspective, from an evaluation perspective, we've got to assess the risks, assess the value and the benefits to our soldiers, and do that with a tactical and a very technical perspective. And so again, leveraging our partners to help us go faster in that domain is absolutely imperative and important. So again, just kind of taking the context back of asking yourself, what's worse? The soldier actually not even having the part and that weapon system being down and non-mission capable, or again, leveraging our industry and our academic partners and our might of the OIB and all of our technical domain and partners to help us assess risk, evaluate that risk, and to go faster to qualify these advanced manufacturing parts. Again, it's kind of venturing off into the unknown in that regard, but it's incredibly important. So the enterprise, again, we're focused on driving transformation and change. You know, qualification processes can take upwards of 14 plus months in that regard, and that to us is unacceptable. We've got to go faster, and we need your help in that. So I do want to highlight one example of going faster and how challenging the status quo has been important to us. So I've got a little part here to highlight. Anyone ever seen one of these before? Raise your hand if you've seen it. Yeah, couple, not many, right? You can kind of highlight. It's a small tap hammer to induce a tap test. So this is used at our depots to highlight and, ready? Again, archaic processes and transformation. We actually tap the helicopter blade, listen with our very calibrated ears to determine where and when and how many defects we can assess, okay? Happening today in one of our depots. And what we're here to also relay, and very proud of the fact that we've actually induced technology. It's called shearography. It's a thermal imaging technology, and we worked with our T2Com and our DEFCOM partners and our strategic partners like NIAR to help us accelerate and qualify that particular process to, instead of using a tap hammer and our very calibrated ears, to now using thermal imaging technology to assess defects in helicopter blades, where we can now reduce our time from 4 hours of tapping to now an 87% reduction in time. And that, again, is speed and agility using technologies that we already have today and implementing them within our depots and arsenals and our OIB partners. Again, I just wanted to highlight that one example. It's advanced manufacturing and process improvement, right? But it's the adaptation of that risk posture and really accepting that risk within our culture. So again, I just use that as an example to highlight how we're implementing technology within our depots and arsenals. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Jason Duncan as we kind of highlight again some of the initiatives that TACOM is embarking on to really transform our parts qualification process for advanced manufacturing. Jason?
Thank you, Carolyn. I'm going to stand up and move around. Before I get started with my portion, I just wanted to applaud the efforts from the headquarters AMC on the lines of effort. I've never seen an effort where all the DevComs, all the LCMCs come together to solve complex problems. And that's what we're doing every day. We're putting points on the board. We're solving long-standing challenges that existed within the advanced manufacturing framework and really getting after it. So really appreciate and applaud the effort and the leadership from headquarters AMC. I'm going to talk about our origin story. So this process and how TACOM got put on the map for advanced manufacturing started with battle damage, repair, and fabrication. This effort really started getting after and solving readiness challenges for the Army, utilizing advanced manufacturing, filling and augmenting supply challenges as they exist in the normal supply system. We ran through a very robust process, leveraged multiple stakeholders to execute this, which really bogged down the process and slowed things down. So by the time we got to a part that was BDRF approved, the ESR demand vanished, or the value proposition of replacing that component disappeared. BDRF also came with some challenges and required multiple maintenance touch points. And that was one of the areas that, you know, the tactical formations kind of pushed back a little bit about having to remove and replace install the BDRF component until the OEM part showed up and immediately replacing that BDRF component. So that led to some of the challenges and shortcomings with the BDRF program. So we looked at all the processes that we went through, and AMC challenged us, why don't we just qualify those parts? Huge challenge. We've had parts that sat in the ECP process that we worked through with no movement whatsoever. So we analyzed the problem, identified what was really holding us back from moving forward, and it all came back to policy. We elevated that up. Headquarters AMC took the mantle, met with Army senior leaders, the Secretary of the Army, and developed Army Directive 2025-14 that gave the authority for the AMC CG to qualify advanced manufacturing parts. And that was a game changer. That really started moving things forward. But also, no good deed comes unpunished. So we were challenged, as you heard maybe in the video earlier, to execute 60 parts in 60 days. I had a full head of hair before this started, catching hairs that were falling out, but a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of challenges, but the community came together, the Detroit Arsenal community. We worked very well together with our GVSC teammates, as well as Rock Island Arsenal Joint Manufacturing Technology Center to get after that problem. So we didn't want to just meet the standard, we exceeded the standard. We qualified 61 parts in 57 days. So big applause, thank you. And that just highlighted our ability to move faster. What we realized with the way we were set up is that that pace was not sustainable in the long run. We needed to look at our process and retool to get after parts qualification, movement away from battle damage, repair and fabrication, or temporary use parts. So we automated our processes, we're integrating AI technology, and really stepping back and looking at how much faster can we move forward with sustained pressure to move parts through the process. And what we've signed up to do is 425 parts in the next 12 months. A big ask, but we're already starting to figure out ways to get there. 4x, what we had before, but we really believe it's achievable. And it's not just because we think we can. We've analyzed the problem, and we're pulling all the levers to be able to execute to that requirement. We're eliminating unnecessary steps in our process and reducing the time at each one of those processes. We can see ourselves and see how long things are sitting at various stages to be able to identify and allocate resources. We're strategically partnering with industry and academia. It was brought up, NIAR. NIAR is one of our strategic partners. We've also worked with other vendors to develop digital twins. Those digital twins allow us to kind of move that tech data into the advanced manufacturing workflow. We've done it with the M113, we've done it with the Bradley, we're doing it now with the M8882, and looking at other platforms beyond there. We're also investing in the OIB. You heard this morning, we're really trying to push OIB modernization, OIB capability, and it's there in spades with the advanced manufacturing mission. Another really exciting effort that we were able to announce at Mill AM, and I'll repeat it now because it was so exciting, is we started to bring vendors into our framework and qualifying vendors. You can see my chart on the left-hand side. I won't speak to it, but we've set up an accelerated process to bring industry partners into the fold so they can produce advanced manufacturing qualified parts and allow us to meet the pace of war. So we've kind of looked at that process, we've proven that process out for industry partners, and now we're pivoting to our tactical formations and OIB. And as I stated before, it's only right that we start with Rock Island Arsenal Joint Manufacturing Technology Center as the first tactical organic site to receive qualification. We've had a GVSC team out there a couple weeks ago, and we're wrapping that up. All signs point to yes. They'll be the first, and then following that, we'll move out to other locations, 21st TSC, 19th ESC, 25th ID, partnering with 1AD, 101st, 3rd ID, and 4th ID to really start moving through our process and figure out how to better support in the tactical domain, as well as receive information up at the enterprise to allow us to move faster. 21st TSC signed an MOU with TACOM for advanced manufacturing. which will enable us to project that capability forward. I won't steal a lot of Colonel Montgomery's thunder, but I did want to highlight some really exciting things that are going on in the formations. I'll start with the 101st, just a quick example. Some of you may have seen it. It was playing in the video. They identified a readiness challenge. It was a muzzle brake key, small component on the M109A3. It was highlighted in a podcast and really became a call to action across the enterprise to solve this problem. So TACOM, working with the 101st, also partnering with NIAR, we were able to produce those parts and just recently had a successful live fire testing event. So really excited about the efforts going on and the support we're getting inside the units to move forward with these advanced manufacturing parts. And then the second one, just for sake of time, that I'll highlight is 1AD, really getting after it, utilizing fielded technology to produce advanced manufacturing parts. And they're doing this all within their advanced manufacturing authorities for tiered parts, advanced manufacturing capability given to them in DAPAM 750-1 and AR 750-1. I'll stop there, transition my battle buddy, Colonel Montgomery, talk a little bit more about capability echelon.
I guess I'm done. Everybody said all the good stuff, right? So I want to start with think digitally, print tactically, repair strategically. Now, that's the foundational motto that we have at the Ordnance School. Now, when you look at the Ordnance School and the 28 MOSs that we train, there's one MOS that's really responsible for this advanced manufacturing endeavor. That's the 91 Echo, and the warrant officer, the 914 Alpha, so the Allied Trade Specialist. So what we've done, essentially, when we look at this in large scale, from the strategic to the tactical, you know, we are up against a battle that the supply chain, everybody knows, cannot keep up with. Regardless of the world we're in. So we're not necessarily focused on the factory and the factory's ability to deliver parts. We're focused on the ability of that young soldier to manufacture parts at the point of need. That is where we're at, and that's what we're training the soldiers with. So in yesteryears, the 91 Echo MOS, Allied Trade Specialist, was really responsible for cutting and welding. That's it in combat, cutting and welding. Their skills were really honed in after 20 years of war, when we had to put armor plating on these vehicles and they had to learn how to fabricate. Now today, we've accelerated that tremendously. Now, in the Ordnance School, we are not just building young soldiers and teaching them how to weld and cut. That's part of their curriculum. Now we're teaching them far more exquisite technology of 3D printing, of CAD design, CAM design, from production to execution, right? And that's a pretty complex, that's more of an engineer task, and that's what we're trying to do. We've increased the point of instructions for the enlisted soldiers. We've increased it some 30 hours for the warrant officers, a lot more advanced technical skills. We've also increased the warrant officer curriculum to almost 300 plus hours. So they got to stay in school much, much, much longer. In the past, you have, you know, a young warrant officer, CW2, that would come to the school and stay in perhaps 2 months. Now it's up to nine plus weeks, right? And so in order to ensure that the modernization efforts are proliferated and we get the right skills at these units that are doing exquisite things in technology, we need to train the soldiers in the schoolhouse how to use that technology. And likewise, we are partnering with a lot of universities and academia in the advanced manufacturing space. So now, how does this all work and come together strategically as we link in this, this intertwined network of all this advanced manufacturing? So what we're trying to do as part of the advanced manufacturing strategy is we're trying, as the slide, if you go to the next slide, Ms. Farmer's slide. So we have 180 First Armored Division, we have 101st, we have 21st TSC, we have all these divisions and these units doing their own experimentation. And so, which is great. And in partnership with TACOM, in partnership with AMC, what we're trying to do is build these foundries, these exquisite foundries. And these foundries at echelon, from the battalion all the way to the core, essentially a factory with the best and the most advanced manufacturing tools, if you will be placed in these units. The same type of equipment, so we could, life cycle them out as well. And those 91 Echoes and 914s could come in and not atrophy their skills. They will continue to build those things and build those parts as TACOM and AMC starts to certify these parts. And right now, we have young soldiers building a lot of parts. They're experimenting. Their skills are proliferating. And these parts that they're building, they're testing out, they're sending it to us so we could validate and certify them. Little parts the size of your finger that they could build will replace a part that costs $5,000 to $10,000, right? The components, there's when you take a particular part out of a vehicle, if a little piece breaks, for example, you got to take that whole entire piece and send it back to the OEM. That whole entire piece, that component, will likely cost $10,000 or more, and we could rebuild those little pieces for pennies on the dollar. So that's what we're doing, and as we build these foundries in the U.S. and overseas, we start to connect them. So if a unit is making a particular part, they could share that part across the world. That's how we project combat power forward in the Indo-Pacific, in Europe, in Africa, in Asia Pacific, and so forth, right? So as we build these foundries that are man-controlled, C2'd by those forward deployed units, and so that's part of the strategy that we're trying to build. I'll open up the questions, ma'am.
Actually, we're getting the hand wave, so I know we're probably not going to be able to take questions, but if you do have questions off stage, if you'll meet us in the back here, we've actually got a sidebar room. We're more than happy to take your questions for advanced manufacturing. But allow me to kind of do just a quick wrap up. Number one, gentlemen, thank you so much for sharing the stage with me today. Incredible background and capabilities, and thank you so much for bringing your specific areas of expertise to complement this particular discussion on advanced manufacturing. To highlight our incredible tap hammer that will soon be in a museum, we will actually be ribbon cutting the chirography chamber at Corpus Christi Army Depot next week. Could not be more excited to put this in a museum. So applause to that. But again, as a wrap up for advanced manufacturing, our adversaries and our technologies will never, ever be as slow as it is today. It will only get faster, and we need your help to go faster in that domain. I would venture to say that if we are not making people feel uncomfortable, you're probably not doing your job in Army transformation, right? Ask questions, push back, do not accept status quo, because every single one of our soldiers deserve for you to push back and for you to ask the question of, why can't we go faster, okay? So please keep that in mind. We are faster when we actually work together. You've heard every single one of us mention working across the Army enterprise. We're working at the OSW and joint service level. We're working with our academic partners and our incredible industry partners to get after this particular space. So again, we're faster together. And our goal in all of this for advanced manufacturing, as we kind of take this, to wrap it up, is really to never allow any of our soldiers to enter a fair and equal fight. We want them to have an advantage at every single turn. We want to give them that advantage to win, and lastly, to come home safely to their friends and family. That is our job, and that's what we're here to do. And we feel that advanced manufacturing is one of the many ways, if we harness that technology and power, that we're going to get us there. So again, thank you for your time, and thank you for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, before you leave, we have a special awards presentation. If you have time, please join us for the Army Soldiers and Coach of the Year. Athletes.
Hello? Oh. I'm mic'd up. Be scared. Hi, Mike. If you're here for the Athlete and Coach of the Year ceremony, please take your seats. We're going to begin momentarily. Thank you. Boom, boom, boom. How are you? I'm good. Good to see you too. Yeah. I got roped into narrating this because they didn't lock a narrator in. So. Some things never change.
That's right. Voice of AUSA.
The voice of AUSA has spoken. Are we ready?
Ladies and gentlemen of the Warriors Corner, we will have a special awards presentation for deserving athletic soldiers and coaches. Please join us. If you have time, please just assemble, take a seat. Thank you.
Thanks for the backup. All right, good afternoon. I'm Sergeant Major Retired Julie Guerra, Director of NCO and Soldier Programs for AUSA. Welcome to the Army's Athlete and Coach of the Year Awards ceremony, hosted by Installation Management Command. The Army's Athlete and Coach of the Year Awards honors the leading male and female athletes and top coach who exemplify sportsmanship, integrity, and professionalism, both on and off the field. This program is open to male and female soldier athletes and coaches from the active, reserve, and National Guard Army, participating in garrison intramurals, varsity sports, and all Army sports. Nominations were evaluated based on athletic or coaching performance, military accomplishments, awards, and community service. Presenting these outstanding soldier athletes their awards are the CG of Installation Management Command, Lieutenant General James Smith, and Command Sergeant Major Corey Perry. Woo! I'm a wooer. Sergeant First Class Lolita E. Galdones has been selected as the winner for the 2025 Female Army Soldier Athlete of the Year Award, recognizing her exceptional athletic excellence, leadership, and community involvement. As the captain of the All-Army Women's Rugby team for the past 3 years, Sergeant First Class Galdones has an impressive record, leading her team to win 2 gold medals and 1 silver medal. Her skill and dedication culminated in her selection as a member of the Armed Forces team during the 2025 Armed Forces Women's Rugby Championship. She was instrumental in securing a gold medal, demonstrating her value as a level-headed leader and playing every minute of the championship match. In addition to her athletic achievements, Sergeant First Class Galdones is committed to community service. She coaches the Fayetteville women's rugby team, actively promoting the sport and fostering camaraderie within the Fort Bragg area. Ladies and gentlemen, your Army Female Soldier Athlete of the Year, Sergeant First Class Lolita E. Galdones. Staff Sergeant Eric Munoz has been selected as the winner for the 2025 Male Army Soldier Athlete of the Year Award, recognizing his exceptional passion, discipline, and selfless service both on and off the field. In 2025, Staff Sergeant Munoz demonstrated his athletic versatility by participating in the 1st Cavalry Division Week for his unit's soccer and flag football teams, and by running the Austin Marathon, representing the 1st Cav Division. He is a key player and a driving force behind the Fort Hood soccer team, consistently delivering high-level performance. Staff Sergeant Munoz is also deeply committed to his community, dedicating his personal time to volunteering at youth soccer clinics and supporting various local soccer academies and high schools throughout Central Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, your Army Soldier Athlete of the Year, Staff Sergeant Eric Munoz. Last but certainly not least, Sergeant First Class Linwood L. Blackman III has been selected as the winner of the 2025 Army Coach of the Year Award, recognizing his exceptional leadership and profound impact on the U.S. Army Garrison Bavaria sports community. As the head coach for the U.S. Army Garrison Bavaria male varsity basketball team, Sergeant First Class Blackman created a culture of excellence that led the team to win the Europe Military Conference Finals Championship in his first year. His leadership extends beyond the basketball court, as he also serves as the head coach for his squadron's intramural flag football, soccer, and softball teams. Sergeant First Class Blackman is dedicated to giving back to the community by hosting free skill-sharing workshops for youths, adults, and seniors. These workshops focus on teamwork, work ethics, and practical training techniques for peak performance. His outstanding contributions have been recognized with several awards, including the Military Outstanding Volunteer Service Medal and an Army Achievement Medal for leading his team to become the IMCOM Europe Community Recreation Basketball Champions. Ladies and gentlemen, your Army Coach of the Year, Sergeant First Class Linwood Blackman III. At this time, Sergeant Blackman. At this time, we would like to call all awardees to the stage for a group photo with the IMCOM leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending this award ceremony and celebrating the amazing success of these soldier athletes. This will defend, be all you can be.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen in the Warriors Corner. As you finish your lunch, would you please collect all of your trash and take it with you? The sanitation department is on strike in the Warriors Corner, so we know who you are. We have another presentation in 15 minutes. Thank you for your attention. Okay, FYI, there's an empty trash can at the rear of the Warriors Corner, right behind me. So if you need a place to deposit your trash, please do so.
just move data back and forth between those two, which was a really
likes to talk about seeing artillerymen riding on the back of MRE boxes.
To do with command and control. Every single warfighting function fits into the ecosystem of command and control. Every single mission thread is a part of command and control. Anything that is going to require a decision from a commander is part of command and control. So whether that is protection, fires, intelligence, everything contributes to lethality. And that's what command and control, and that's really what Next Gen C2 is all about. This is more than just talking on a radio and ensuring that you are able to control and coordinate your forces. This is about moving at a speed that was unprecedented in the future fight, because that's going to be required. We're going to face an enemy in the future that is going to be a peer. And the only way that we're going to have a strategic advantage is through our command and control mechanisms. That's our secret sauce in the U.S. military. It's not going to be mass. It's going to be the way that we effectively synchronize and command our forces. So at this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it off to Seth. He's going to talk a little bit about what 4th Infantry Division's been doing